Yeah, Dimitri, do you want to come on?
I want to kind of ask this question about disintermediation. It's a little bit related to the question that Michael asked earlier. I'm wondering, like, what strategies worked really well for you to prevent disintermediation, and what strategies didn't? And I'm particularly interested in the case of kind of maybe larger, more famous merchants that may have their own kind of shipping fulfillment capacity. And how do you kind of deal with people outgrowing perhaps Goldbelly and turning into those? How do you bring maybe the bigger ones to your market? Help me think through that.
That's a great question. One that we had a lot of discussions of internally. I think the example that I gave of the Make Merchants marketing team, like that was pretty sticky for us because one of the things that merchants really didn't like to do or didn't know, like if you're a food maker, you're good at making food. Running marketing and customer acquisition, really different for you, really tough. And so that became like a really sticky proposition for people. Again, going back to the let's make some tools for folks to make it sticky. That was pretty helpful. I think also maybe somewhat contrarian to what some folks say is if you're building something really good, even if you lose one of these big merchants, there's a chance that they don't know what they're biting off, right? We've had a lot of folks that think they've outgrown Goldbelly leave and then come back like 12 months later, sometimes less. I think our quickest turnaround has been 3 months. They were like, oh my God, we don't know. We're right, very wrong. Like, let's come back. And guess what? Then you have negotiating power in the contract that you're re-signing with them because they've come back. So sometimes losing folks is not the worst thing. They also become examples that you can give to other people that when you're talking to them about them leaving, you'd be like, well, you remember X, Y, and Z of your compatriots? They also tried leaving, and guess what? They're back on the site. So just keep that in mind that it's not always the worst. The other things I would say is like marketplaces are inherently flywheels that are kind of like feeding one another. To start one of those from scratch, as you all know as founders, is really difficult. So this is basically when you have a large player that's going off on their own and trying to do this, they're essentially doing that. And so, but with a seller of one, which becomes innately more difficult. And so, in being able to articulate to the folks that are trying to leave, all of those problems is one way to keep them on board. And something that I think we did really well. We had like a 98.5% retention rate on the merchant side. Um, Actually, a good segue of a story because I think as y'all face competitors, you might run into this. So as we started to get to good scale, we ran into DoorDash and Uber Eats trying to compete with us. They both launched similar offerings. It was scary at the time, and we're like, oh man. We again, as a team, like really circled up and said, we're gonna hold our ground. We're gonna win this fight. Motivate. It actually became really motivational for the company. And the way we did that was a couple of things. We really focused on sort of merchant success. Again, the make merchant marketers team was part of that, but also just operational and logistics success for them. Um, our contracts became really strong, so they became really sticky. We actually said, "Hey, if you want to go with them, you can go with them, but you're leaving Goldbelly." And at the time, that seemed really scary because we're like, okay, we're literally giving people to our competitors, but we knew how hard this was to make. And we knew that even if DoorDash and Uber Eats had like infinite resources, they had, some product managers working on it versus like founders and people that were invested in the company working on it. And so out of I think at the time we had 1,000 merchants, we lost about 80 of them. Um, as with this sort of mandate saying like you can't be on both at the same time. Uh, that was kind of scary, but we were able to claw back everyone but like four over time because they realized we were actually better at it than DoorDash and Uber Eats, and we stayed in contact with people that had left us again pretty loosely. And then when they had realized that that Goldbelly was actually better than the alternative, we were the first person that we were, front of mind, and then they were able to come back to us, and it actually became really strong and really strengthening for our processes.